Thanks for joining us this evening. Um, we're together for 90 minutes or so, so we're going to go through to about 7:30. And I'm going to introduce you to Patsy Gillam, who is the brains behind this piece of work at the moment. So, Patsy, if you'd just like to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah, hello, I'm Patsy. I'm a singer and songwriter and a music teacher, and I also work in Cumbria for Young Sounds as a connector. So I will connect young people up with musical opportunities, and this is part of that work.
And when you say
I'd just like to say, sorry.
young sounds, Patsy, what's that all about?
Young Sounds is an organisation based across the UK, and they help support young people with their musical journeys, whether it be financial or with musical opportunities. So I'm the signpost for Cumbria, basically.
Okay, right. Um, Rose, you've just raised your hand. I'll come back to you in due course, Rose. We're just going to do introductions first of all, and then we'll see how we get on. The way the evening's going to work, so Patsy, stay there, is we've got three speakers who I will introduce to you now. I'm going to start off just by saying hello to Joe Davis. Hello, Joe. Where are you this evening?
Hi, Tom. I'm actually in Leamington, which isn't in Cumbria. I'm just about to do a rehearsal with an orchestra here. So, yeah, down in the Midlands in Leamington.
Okay, but you're from Cumbria originally, is that right?
Yes, yeah. I grew up in Cumbria. Still go back a lot with, particularly with the Cumbria Opera Group, and but I live in London. Otherwise, yeah.
Okay, where did you go to school?
I went to Appleby Primary and Quaig's Penrith.
Okay, all right, okay. And we're going to hear from you shortly, and you're going to tell us a bit about your life and career as a conductor, which sounds like an incredibly grown-up thing to be doing. And you look so young, Joe. But we'll find out a bit about Joe and what he does and how he ended up where he is in a second. So stay there. I'm going to say hello also to Lauren, Lauren Gilmour. Hello, Lauren.
Hello, Tom. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, what do you do and where are you this evening?
I am also not in Cumbria. I'm in Glasgow, and my link to the brilliant network down there is the lovely Patsy, who studied in Scotland when we met. So I work at the University of the West of Scotland. I'm a lecturer in commercial music as well as a music producer. And I suppose the hybridity of those things in my work is what I'm keen to talk about this evening. So, yeah, I'm excited to be part of the conversation tonight as the out of towner, though, for sure.
You're very welcome as an honorary Cumbrian this
Thank you
evening,
so much.
Lauren.
I'll wear that badge proudly. Thank you, Tom.
It's always nice when someone says down there. I mean, that's, you're up there, so we're down here for you
Yeah.
this evening. All right, okay. Thank you, Lauren. And then finally, I'd just like to say hello to Emma Salmon, who is sitting there patiently. Hello, Emma. Tell us a bit about yourself and where you are this evening.
Hi, thanks, Tom. My name's Emma. I am speaking to you from Whitehaven tonight, in West Cumbria. I am a creative producer for a music charity. I'm a music teacher and I'm a musician as well. And yeah, I'm also very, very happy to be part of this call. Yeah, thank you for having me.
And when was the last time you sang in public?
Sang in public. Oh, at the weekend at Cockermouth Live.
At Cockermouth Live. How
Of
did
all
that go?
places, yes, at Cockermouth Live, Tom. I was there at the weekend.
Was it a good experience?
It was amazing. Yeah, it was great. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, great, lovely stuff. Very nice to have you as well, Emma. So we'll come to Emma in due course as well. But just going back to Patsy, Patsy, tell us a bit about this project. And something happened in Kendal, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where one or two people came along as well. But tell us a bit about what this project is trying to do.
So tonight and the other week at the Music Congress, I think a couple of you were there, which is brilliant. Is all about inspiring young people into a career in music and making sure that they know that it's possible, because often careers in music aren't really pushed in school and other places. So it's just to really show all the different paths you can take as a musician, and that a music career is definitely possible.
And do you think there's a need? Do you think there's a need for this sort of support and help for young people in Cumbria?
Yeah, I think especially Cumbria, because we don't have, like, we've got Carlisle as a city, but we we don't have that many musical opportunities and places to go as a young musician, and especially in like other fields like pop music and things like that.
Okay. I learned an interesting stat the other day, Kendal Calling, which some people on this call may have heard of or even been to, which is a massive festival that takes place in Lowther Deer Park these days. When it happens, which is in August, it becomes the third biggest town in Cumbria, because you've got Carlisle, you've got Barrow, and then Kendal Calling, which is 40,000 people. Just shows what an impact music and a musical event can have on a place like Cumbria, and the sort of numbers we're talking about. Right, so tell us a bit about what happened at the brewery in Kendal recently, Patsy, and then I think we're going to see a short little clip of what happened.
On the 24th of June, we had the Youth Music Congress, which was great. We had a great day full of music workshops at the Brewery Arts Centre. We had some workshops from Jess Gilmour, saxophonist and presenter, Wayne from Kendal College, who was a producer, Sam Becker, who's a session musician and works for Being a Business, if you know who that is, and Jack McNeil, a composer and clarinetist. And we had a great day, great feedback, and even some nice pizza as well.
Sounds good. Right, so let's have a little clip. Let's see a little clip of what happened at the brewery in Kendal. I'm just going to pause it there. Is everyone else getting sound, or is it just me that's not getting sound? Okay, so we're just missing out on the sound there, Amy. So perhaps we just start that again, and we'll see if we can get some sounds going on that film, because there was definitely music taking place on the stage. Let's try again.
Yeah, people got to perform on the stage, which was really good. At the end of the day, we had like an open mic jamming session.
Dancing where the dead alive, crying for a nameless victim.
You're fighting in your head, zombie, 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 what's in your head?
Wow, that one at the end was quite good. Who was she?
It's my sister.
All right, okay, great stuff. And what did people sort of learn from that session, do you think, Patsy?
I think it was a good day to inspire people and get the young people to meet successful musicians firsthand in person, which was a great thing.
Okay, all right. Well, sounds like it was fun. Okay, well, let's now thank you, Patsy. And do chip in at any time if you want to say anything else as we're talking with Joe and Emma and Lauren.
Yeah, thank you for Cumbria Arts and Culture Network for doing this, and thank you to everyone who's here and to all the different speakers. Thank you, it'll be great.
All right. And was there a couple of slides you wanted to show, Patsy?
Yeah, Amy, would it be possible to share my Young Sounds contact slides, please? So if you would like to get in contact with me, I can share any musical opportunities that might be geared towards you and anything that you might be interested in the area, and also other opportunities in other areas too. Do get in contact. You can take a screenshot if you like.
Okay, that's cool. I'll leave that up there for a moment or two. Patsy is going to be on the call through till 7:30. I'm just going to mute Patsy there. Yeah, this is very much a process to try and support young people. So do grab those contacts. The Cumbrian Music Hub is not going anywhere, and it is very keen to help young people to progress their careers in music in Cumbria. Thank you, Patsy. Right, okay, let's turn to Mr. Joe Davis then and find out a bit more about Joe. So Joe, welcome. I know you're a busy man, so just tell us about your day today. What have you been up to?
What have I been up to today? I had meetings about the Cumbria Opera Festival, which is just round the corner. It's the end of August, and that's gradually taking over my life as it gets closer and closer. I had meetings for that. Then I went and ran a schools workshop, which is in collaboration with an orchestral project that I'm running in Hammersmith. And then I zoomed up here, and I've got a rehearsal tonight with the Leamington Sinfonia. We've got a concert on Saturday. We're doing Scheherazade, which should be great fun. And that's sort of, I mean, as typical as it can be. That's sort of a typical day in the life. Lots of bits and bobs, lots of meetings, and then I do 6 weekly orchestras. So I have a rehearsal 6 out of 7 weeknights at various parts of the UK. So I'm sort of an expert on service stations and trains.
And tell us a bit about your upbringing, Joe, and particularly your musical upbringing, perhaps in Cumbria. How did you end up where you are today, having started off as a little baby in Cumbria?
Yeah, so I mean, music and drama, but particularly music was always my big passion at school, and I was grateful to have some brilliant and very supportive teachers at Appleby Primary and at Queggs, who really developed that and gave me the opportunity to conduct the orchestras and the choirs at the school. And so it was always a no-brainer to go off and do music at university. But I arrived at university as very much a jack of all trades. I played cello, I sung, I did a bit of conducting at that time. But it's not in any way false modesty to say, I wasn't a master of any of those. I wasn't, going there as a, complete dedicatee in one of those. It was a jack of all trades, really. And so I was doing everything and anything really at university, trying to join as many choirs and orchestras as I could, doing a bit of acting as well. But the conducting sort of gradually, slowly but surely took over. And I sort of came as a jack of all trades, but left as a first study conductor, really. Orchestras have always been my, big thing, which I most loved. I always say about my cello career, as it were, that I loved playing the cello because it allowed me to be part of something bigger. It allowed me to be in orchestras. I never really loved the cello because of itself, because of what it was, but the fact that it allowed me to play with others, which for me is what music's all about. So conducting was what took over, and I went up to Birmingham to study there, and then moved to London about 2 years ago. So it still takes me everywhere and anywhere, really. It's not a very localized profession, and I'm very, very, very grateful to do a lot of work still in Cumbria. I was just there on Saturday actually doing a proms at the Carlisle Castle, so that was great fun. But that's me now living.
So let me take you back to school. I think we've got Anna, we've got George, we've got Laura, we've got Rose on the call. Many of whom, if not all of them, are at school at the moment in their teenage years. So Queggs, Queen Elizabeth Grammar School in Penrith, which I know a little bit because my son went there, in fact. Was it a particular musical school? Was music a cool thing to do? Were there other people that were wanting to develop careers in music, or were you a bit of a sort of lone operator in that respect?
It was really. I mean, it was. It had a really good kind of thriving set of extracurricular music things, and the music teachers at the time, people like Sarah Massey and Jane Baggett, ran a selection of brilliant choirs and orchestras, which they really worked hard at and really did well. We even went on a little tour to Italy actually when I was in year 8. So we were very lucky. I mean, it's like with any school, it's kind of what the teachers you have at the time, and it's how prepared they are to work hard, and I'll always be grateful for that. When I got to A level, there were only 2 of us who wanted to do A level music, though. It was just me and a friend, and obviously that was a financial difficulty for the school. But they worked very hard, the head teacher and the SLT, to make music A level happen, albeit on a reduced timetable, and to allow it to still be around with just two of us doing that course. So again, always be very grateful for that. But and it remains, I know Natalie Wilkinson quite well, who's the head of music, and it remains a really busy, really thriving school that really works hard at the arts and does very well.
Okay. And so you took the plunge to do a degree in music, and I'm just looking at the list of orchestras that you're involved with at the moment. So I'm not going to embarrass you, Joe, but basically there aren't many orchestras in this country, I think, that you haven't touched in some way, shape or form. Recent and future engagements include the Royal Northern Sinfonia, Orchestra of the Swan, National School Symphony Orchestra, Oxford University Orchestra, City of Southampton Orchestra, Nottingham Symphony Orchestra, and Winchester Symphony Orchestra. While previously you've worked with Worcester Philharmonic Orchestra, Midland Concert Orchestra, Contemporary Music East Midlands, and as you said, you founded the Cumbria Opera Group back in 2016 to bring world-class opera to Cumbria. So we'll come on to that in a second. So is the role of a conductor with an orchestra, you're almost like a gun for hire? This word get around that Joe Davies, he's a half decent conductor. Do you have to work really hard to kind of set your sight out and earn the reputation, and then the reputation takes over, or do you always have to be looking for the next job?
I think it's a big mixture, really. I mean, thinking of kind of the jobs I have at the minute, it's a big range of ways in which I've kind of got those jobs and still have those things ongoing. A lot of them are simply they're weeknight orchestras. They put the job spec up, you go, you apply, you have an interview, you have a conductor audition, which is the weirdest thing ever.
How does that work?
Well, you have between 15 and 45 minutes, depending on the group, to conduct a little rehearsal segment. And particularly if it's short, particularly if it's 15 minutes, it's the weirdest thing ever, because you have to get across that A, you're capable, B, you're clear as a conductor, and C, you've got a good personality, and people will be willing to give up their weeknight to spend 2 hours with you. To be honest with you, I do have a set of jokes which I reuse every time for these auditions. I've developed a gameplay, so if anyone has ever seen 2 of my auditions, they'll be very unimpressed, because I'll just be a repeat of the same selection of jokes. But I mean, that's genuinely part of it. You have to be show that you're a nice person, that you're a funny person, you got something about you. But it's a mixture of that. They're applying. It's, as you alluded to, a mixture of word of mouth. You might conduct an orchestra and someone in that orchestra is also chair of another orchestra, and they may invite you. It's applying to things constantly. It's meeting people. It's getting the word out. It's a whole range of things, really, but just staying in tune as much as you can.
And I'm always intrigued by professional musicians and people that work in music as to when a hobby becomes a job. When for you did you decide, actually, this is something that I want to do and I can earn a living out of this?
It was actually, as I say, like throughout uni, it gradually became more and more sort of my thing. And it sort of became less me saying, I do a bit of this and a bit of that, and more me saying I was a conductor. And sort of the divining point came one evening after a rehearsal. We were in the pub and someone just asked me, what do you want to do after uni? And I just heard myself say, I want to be a conductor. And I'm not saying that there and then I decided. It was sort of a gradual thing. And that was probably the first time I sort of said it out loud and sort of accepted it myself, really. And that was I think I was end of second year at uni. So it was
about 2021, something like
that? No, a bit earlier. So I went to undergrad 2015 to 2018. So that would have been 2017.
Okay. But you were about 21 years old, were you?
About 20 years old then. Yeah.
So that's a moment that you still remember.
Yes. Yeah. No, still remember that moment. Yeah. As I say, that wasn't the moment I decided, but kind of the realization, if you like, and the moment I sort of said it to the world, if you like, albeit in the form of one person at the bar.
And what would what advice would you give to people who are trying to develop their career in music? Maybe not to become a professional musician, maybe just to develop their skills and their talents as a player or as a singer. What would you say to them are the things that are worth thinking about, that you can reflect upon?
It's a little bit of an obvious point, but just work really, 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 really hard. Because being in the arts is so rewarding. But it can be very difficult to find your way and to find your now. So just work your socks off. It's like anything in life. If you put the effort in, the rewards will come out. I spoke at the Quakes Awards evening recently, and I repeated piece of advice that the head teacher when I was there said, Chris Kirkup. He said, if you fail to prepare to fail, and that's always stuck with me really. And it sounds so obvious, but and I'm so grateful to my parents particularly for instilling that sort of hard work ethic. They work so hard at their careers, and so why shouldn't I work hard at mine? And that's been it really.
Did you come from a musical background?
Well, my mum, she's not a musician, but she's a very talented oboe player. So she was the one who sort of, got me playing instrument from a very young age and really encouraged it. So she's definitely very, very musical. And my dad, one of his big regrets was he never learned an instrument, but he was a very good singer. And we actually went and sung in a choir when I was growing up, and we went together. So they were both very musical, and they really encouraged it and developed it. But yeah, not any professional musicians in my family, apart from, well, now my younger brother and myself.
Okay, sorry, I cut across you, Joe. You were just coming up with a stream of consciousness of advice and things that you would say to people.
It was probably a genius advice, but it's gone now. No, I'm kidding.
Well, if anyone wants to ask Joe a question, the way to do it is there should be a button on your Zoom screen, hopefully, called raise hand. So if you want to ask a question, just put your hand up and I'll know that you want to ask a question, and we'll take you off mute and you can ask that question to Joe. But I've just got a couple more, Joe, which is, where do you see yourself going in the next 5 years or so?
Well, I mean, I look at the conductors I admire, people like my old teacher at Birmingham Conservatoire, Michael Seal, and he conducts a huge range of things, not just professional outfits, but amateur outfits, youth outfits, student groups, and a huge range of styles as well. He conducted at the BBC proms last year. He did a Bollywood prom, but he's also obviously conducted all that kind of the symphonic repertoire. And I think that variety is something that makes him all the more a better conductor. And I think variety and versatility are the two things which, I really love in my profession, going from night to night, conducting different music with different orchestras and a different set of people and a different rehearsal vibe, really. I think that's the thing I love. So not wanting to be stuck in one place, having variety, having different things, and having new interesting challenges, I think, is what I want to do for the next 10, 20, 50 years.
Okay. And tell us a bit about the Cumbria Opera Group and what's taking place in Cumbria this summer.
Yeah, so the Cumbria Opera Group, it will be 10 years next year. It'll be 10 years old. And I founded it at the end of my first year at uni, so in 2016. And it was basically because, as someone who, as a teenager, went to every classical music event they could in Cumbria, I realised that within my first 8 weeks at university, I'd seen more operas then than I had growing up in Cumbria for, 18 years. And it was that realization that I thought, why can't there be more opera in Cumbria? Why can't we have more of this brilliant form? And it was also mixed in with, some of the preconceptions about opera, that it's for a certain social class and for a certain, financial class. And it's just not, why should it be? So it was creating that. And we did a production in 2016. It grew a lot in 2021 with the first festival. We did the second festival in 2023, and we've got the third festival in 2025. And we've always wanted to show variety in opera. And this festival, we've got a jazz opera, we've got Porgy and Bess, we've got a comedy opera in Marriage of Figaro, and we've got an opera called Turn of the Screw, which is sort of psychological thriller, almost bordering on horror in a way, opera. So it's three really different things. And what always means the world to me with COG is when people come, and this happens quite a lot actually, when people come to an opera for the first time with us and they love it and they become, returning visitors to our shows. And that always means the absolute world to us. So that's great to see. And hopefully this year we'll get loads of first timers again. And
just remind us where it takes place across Cumbria, doesn't it? I've been to some of these shows and they are amazing.
Oh, thank you. So all across Cumbria, we've got Carlisle, Appleby, Keswick, Penrith, Barrow, Grange, Kendal, and it's 21st to the 30th of August. Lots of things. Want to touch every part of this county and bring opera home.
Nice. And the people that come and perform for you, are they colleagues, friends, people that you know?
A lot of them are. I mean, we do auditions before the festival, and obviously some of those people we don't know, but it sort of continues to be about 50% Cumbrians and 50% non-Cumbrians, which I think is a really nice balance. You have it created by Cumbrians, but at the same time you're bringing in talent from all across the world, really, which is nice. And we want to keep that sort of roughly 50-50 balance going forward. But yes, all over, really.
I can't wait. I'm definitely going to come along to one or two things. Patsy, was there anything that you wanted to ask Joe before we lose him? Because he's got some conducting to do this evening.
Yes, please. What would be your most proud moment so far?
I'm resisting the urge to say doing a concerto with Jess Gill and Patsy, because I don't want to embarrass you anymore. You're probably sick of hearing about it. Sorry. It would be one of the sort of mass community events that I've done, like I did Marla 2 in Leamington, actually, which involved, over 200 people from all walks of life coming together to perform this mass work, this piece, and it, to make I think it's being honest to say it made a difference to a lot of people and in people's lives, and people will remember that performance. So, something like that. Or it would probably be the first ever Cumbria Opera Festival in 2021, because to be honest with you, I didn't think we could actually pull it off. A county-wide festival, never been done before, and it was such a strange thing to suggest. So probably be one of those two things, I think.
How did the festival come about?
Yeah, so we did a production with COG 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and then after 2019, we'd always just done like the one production every July, and we kind of reached a crossroads with it. We kind of thought, this is fun, this is great, but is it going anywhere? It's just a one-off thing. Is it meaning a lot? And we sort of thought, either let's stop it or let's go bigger. Because if we want to bring opera to Cumbria, you can't just do it in one place every year and then just sort of leave it. So yeah, it was originally planned for 2020. No prizes for guessing why it got postponed. And then it was the first one in 2021, end of August, where we did a week all over Cumbria. So it was building on why we were there in the first place, really bringing it up to Cumbria. We thought let's take it to as many parts of Cumbria as we can.
Great, sounds brilliant.
Okay, Joe. One last passing piece of wisdom from you. You said people need to work hard, and if you don't prepare, if you fail to prepare, you'll prepare to fail, or something like that.
Yeah.
If the 15-year-old Joe Davies was on this call, what would you say to him?
Don't compare yourself to others. It's something that my dad always said. It's advice that I always give to people if they ask, and it's advice that I always fail to do, to be honest with you. We're on our own trajectories, we're on our own paths. We are in a profession that is so varied and has so many different strands. I think if we compare our subjective talents to others, I think it's a bad thing to do. So, have faith in what you're doing, enjoy what you're doing, and keep on doing it.
Pearls of wisdom for free there, everybody. Joe, thank you ever so much. Lovely to see you in Leamington. Go and have a nice evening. And I think you're on the call tomorrow morning, aren't you? The CSN call tomorrow morning. So there's no rest for the wicked.
Yeah, no, looking forward to that. Yeah.
Talk about the Cumbria Opera Group. Okay, Joe Davies, thanks ever so much. Good luck, and thank you very much for your time this evening.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of the meeting. See you soon. Thank you.
Cheers, Dave. Cheers, Joe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you later.
There he goes. Joe Davies, probably the hardest working man in classical music at the moment. Right. Well, let's move on. I think Joe is an absolutely charming, and the other thing that I was going to say to him that I ran out of time is the whole thing about soft skills as well. Joe is incredibly organised and he's incredibly good at communication on email. He responds to questions. He's very organised, and all those soft skills about it's great to be into music. It's great to be able to play an instrument or conduct, but actually you've got to be really organised as well. You know, and you've got to get on with people. You've got to be able to know how to chat and talk about what you do. And I think Joe's a really good example of someone who's a decent human being as well as an incredibly gifted musician. Right, well, let's move on then. And we're now going to meet properly Lauren Gilmour, who is there sitting patiently for us in Glasgow. Hello, Lauren.
Hello, Tom. That was great.
Okay.
What a joy just listening to. I could have just keep listening to Joe. So sorry, we need to move on, but I thought that was great.
Well, let me tell you a bit about Lauren. Lauren's a composer and producer based in Glasgow and is one half of Novasound, Scotland's only female-run recording and production studio. Novasound specialise in alt-pop production, and as well as producing artists and offering a range of audio post services, they specialise in sound for theatre. And you've composed lots of work for all sorts of places across Scotland, across the UK, for the BBC. You've been supported by Creative Scotland, Help Musicians UK and PRS for Music. And you were the recipient of a coveted he for she bursary from the Audio Engineering Society. And you've got a master's degree in sound design and audio visual practice from the University of Glasgow. And you're doing a PhD, Lauren, as well.
The rumours are true. It's a slow moving vehicle, but it is happening.
As well as, and you're a lecturer as well, aren't you? You teach
I am,
too.
yeah. I'm a lecturer up in Scotland at the University of the West of Scotland.
All right, and it says here, as a producer, educator and researcher, Lauren is passionate about breaking down gender barriers in studio environments and inspiring a new generation of exceptional female producers, which is fascinating. We might get into that. So, Lauren, I know you've got a presentation that you're gonna talk to us about. So, shall I let you get on and do that, and then we'll come back with some questions. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. I mean, Amy, is it okay just to if I just sort of call to switch slide? Hopefully, that's okay. Thanks so much for having me this evening. I mean, Tom, it was great just to hear a wee bit about how the network functions. And while I am sort of geographically not where you are, working in the arts in Scotland feels really similar and can totally resonate with having to build community and fight for arts community, particularly in education and in industry. So hopefully some of my experiences, albeit they're in a different community to you guys that are on the call this evening, but hopefully some of this stuff resonates. So before I get into my sort of specific experience, Amy, if we can jump to the next slide, I just thought it was worth considering like this question of like, what are you talking about? What is a producer? You know, the music industries are continually evolving at like a rapid pace, and with technology making it ever more accessible for, you know, globally successful records to be produced potentially from someone's bedroom, there's like this really grey area around what music production actually is. You know, someone like Joe can say, I am a conductor, and we immediately know what that entails. But I think the lines are blurring, and in some ways that's a brilliant thing. But in some ways, for those of you on the call thinking, could that be for me? I don't know if that's my space. I thought it was a kind of good idea to start here. So if we can jump to the next slide, Amy, I feel like there are some common misconceptions that producers need to play every instrument, that producers need to be experts in music theory. There's a misconception maybe around production versus engineering, which we can think about, where a producer may be perceived as someone who just presses buttons or slides faders. And I also think there's a bit of a grey area between producers and DJs doing the same thing. But actually, if we jump to the next slide, Amy, in my opinion, I think a producer actually can be defined much more simply as the things they technically do. And actually, it's someone who has a creative vision for a song or an entire project, and they just know how to bring it to life. So for me, what I love doing and what I think a good producer can do is to guide the overall sound, structure, and feel of a track. They might not even play on it, but they shape an artist's vision in a really specific way. It might involve things like choosing instruments, sounds, beats. For potential songwriters on the call this evening, there is elements of co-writing in production that can be really exciting. But ultimately, a bit like those soft skills that Tom was just chatting about there, Production is also about directing, it's about managing, it's about creating a space that people feel like they want to be creative in, take risks in, feel safe in, usually when there is like a ticking clock and a draining budget. So it's a really sort of, it's an interesting balancing act, one that I absolutely love. If we can jump to the next slide, Amy, I think for anyone on the call who is like, is that potentially a route that I'm interested in learning about? I think a helpful analogy for what a music producer does is actually to think of what a film director is. In that specific person may not be, and is, I mean, let's be real, isn't ever in front of the camera. They don't need to be in every scene. You know, a producer doesn't need to play every note, but what they can do and the skills that they possess, it's about inception to completion. It's about an idea in an artist's head of saying, oh, it'd be really cool if I could emulate the sound of this album that I really love, or the weird distortion I can hear on this guitar. Can you help me do that? A producer is sort of that middle ground. So if we jump to the next slide, I think this can just be as a final sort of point on defining it. I feel like for anyone that has an inclination to consider, like, there is no one way of doing this. And actually, you know, even in a sector like Joe was just talking about, there's no one way to be a conductor either. But particularly in a production context, I think looking at sort of polarized but really famous sort of producers can be useful. So for anyone on the call who isn't aware of who George Martin is, he famously produced the Beatles. And if you observe George Martin at work, whether it's through reading about his production or watching, you know, there's such brilliant documentary footage of these albums being made, famously never touches the desk, you know, doesn't really get his hands dirty, for want of a better phrase. Actually, his approach to producing is really felt in his presence, like his communication, the way he facilitates the band. You can almost see that vantage point that he keeps between engineer and artist. And as an idea is there, you kind of need to be right on the pulse of it in the room. And a producer's job is to sort of steer the ship. You could look at a model like a producer like Dr. Dre, for example. If you're to observe a producer like Dr. Dre at work, he is physically making the beat. He is crafting the track. He is layering sounds up. But I just think it's worth noting that however you observe a producer work, considering a synthesis of both of these skills, so having that presence, that sort of vantage point of the Martin model, but also maybe getting involved in the writing and the shaping and the sonics, like a Dr. Dre model. These people make inherently different music. They have inherently different processes, but they share the same job title. So I think for me, trying to keep production simplified in my mind has always been what's made it feel accessible. So if we can jump to the next slide, Amy, that would be brilliant. This word feels like it might unify, like some of us that are on the call this evening. I work in education now, but I think it's interesting to reflect back that when it comes to production, it feels as if a specific style of training is going to be required. I'm going to need specific technology. I'm going to need specific skills when it comes to tech or maybe hardware. But I thought it was worth looking at how education has underpinned my development at this point. So if we can jump to the next slide. I won't bore you with the details of each of these programs, but as a snapshot, I studied commercial music, and it's an interesting full circle moment to now contribute to the program that you studied your undergrad of. It's changed shape quite a bit. I took some time away from it and studied elsewhere and worked elsewhere. But the thing I love about this program is, for me, and Joe alluded to that as well, it's so much of working in the arts and the creative sector is about environment. I feel like you can sense when that space is somewhere that you're going to thrive in. So for those of you on the call, even if it was that event that Patsy was talking about, if you've just been in one room that you're like, oh, I like it here, like I feel like something good is going to happen, it's a really great indicator. So for me, studying in the commercial music degree, it really gave me a sense of what that environment is that I wanted to chase professionally. There was a style of learning that I really liked. It was not a conservatoire style of education, not to dismiss one or the other, but it was an education that was about actually understanding how the landscape of, for me, the Scottish music industry worked. But for yourselves, you know, having a real handle on how your music landscape looks and feels. The fact you're sitting on this call right now speaks to that you want to be on the pulse of how that's changing. But for me, you know, that 4-year honours programme meant that it afforded me time to start out. I'd done a thing in the gap, which I'll talk about in just a second. But I went on to postgraduate study, which was really just about solidifying the thing I was doing more of professionally. As Tom said, I started to work in theatre and compose for theatre, and I kind of felt a wee bit like an imposter. So a big part of my postgrad was about validating my practice and maybe trying to read some books around it and make sure I kind of knew what I was talking about a little bit. And education for me felt like it was a place to create a better professional identity. And I know that when you are a creative person, sometimes the thought of writing essays about it or reading up on it can feel quite polarizing. But for me, actually bridging a gap between creative practice and education has been something that's always really excited me. And yes, as Tom alluded to now, I'm in a place where I can really get my teeth into that and become a specialist in a subject area that, let's not get into that right now, but maybe at another time we can chat about that. So if we jump to the next slide, please, Amy, that would be great. In that gap that I referred to, sort of going from undergrad to postgrad, so I know for a lot of you, you'll be thinking about that undergraduate degree. So this stuff might feel a little bit like away from you right now, but I actually set up Novasound, which is the studio I still run today, in my 3rd year at university. I was told to make a hypothetical business that I think might earn money, and I thought, why do it hypothetically? I just want to run a business that makes money and I can make music professionally. Novasound is 2 things. It's a physical studio where we collaborate with artists. We're based outside of Glasgow. But it's also the writing partnership that I am one half of. I work and collaborate with Audrey Tate, who's an exceptional drummer and producer. We came up through music in totally different ways. We always say that I am melody and lyrics and Audrey is rhythm and structure. And together we sort of started making fully composed and produced tracks sort of in a wee room in someone else's studio. And the reason that I bring this up, if we can jump to the next slide, Amy, that would be great. The reason I bring this up, there we are too, smiling away. We can skip over that. There you go. We are real people. There we are smiling together. But the next slide alludes to that in 2017, I was studying, you know, I was where you might be in a couple of years, like those of you that are moving into further education. And that thing that Tom said, you know, when does a hobby become the career? It kind of did because we forced it to. We were kind of making music for the love of making music. And actually, I think a really great bit of advice is to reframe opportunity when you can. So both of Audrey and I were in different bands at different times. She was playing in a hip hop band at the time and was offered to write a song for a play, to write one song for a play. The band were experiencing a little bit of downtime, and her and I had just been writing tunes for the love of writing tunes in a studio environment. And she said, like, why don't we just kind of wing it and say, like, we do a thing, maybe we could write some songs for your play. And only because we started doing that job did we need to, you know, call ourselves a thing. So we became Novasound kind of in the process of winging it. And our work then quickly diversified that when you take that first job, the snowball effect is real. It really is tangible, particularly in something like theatre. But, you know, as Joe and Tom have both alluded to on the call, that ability to communicate and seize opportunity, connecting dots between your network, only happens if you are an authentic part of it. I think a good bit of advice I was given when we were setting Novasound up is like, no one is sitting waiting to hear your music. No one is sitting anywhere waiting to give you a job. You need to make them aware of who you are and make it almost impossible for them not to. If we can jump into the next slide, Amy, that would be really helpful. This, other than giving us all a migraine by looking at that much text, it's kind of just to quantify, I suppose, that idea of the snowball effect. So right down at the bottom is 2016. So that's before we're even an official company or an official sort of partnership, for want of a better word. And I can probably, it would put us all to sleep and I'm not going to do it, but I could create the sort of Charlotte's Web of how each of those jobs led to the next one. And I suppose the reason for having this as a visual, and actually it's quite interesting to look back because I can point out a few that I'm like, God, that was terrible, or like that could have been so much better. But there's also moments on that list that I'm like, God, I loved that project. I learned so much through that, or I met a brilliant director here. But the thing that rings true is consistency. So even through times where the arts was like absolutely decimated, you know, for all of us, there were ways round that, and art as a form has a way of like collaborative spirit, just has a way of smashing through, you know, any obstacle that's put in its place. So that resilience of running a business, and you know, Tom put that question to Joe as well of like, how do you get the next gig and where does it come from? And I'm a really like hyper organized person. I don't really like the feeling of just seeing what happens. But trust in the process of if you can go and authentic show up and do the job well, but actually be interested in the folk that are in the room. And it's not in a vapid way of saying, well, can they hire me next? Just take a genuine interest in folk and the stories they want to tell. I found a really genuine link between these things. We can jump to the next slide, please, Amy. That would be great. It would be great to have obviously a bit more of a back and forward with Tom, and if there's any questions there, that's great. I appreciate the time we've got. It's a wee bit of a whistle stop tour, but I think some non-negotiables of my practice. So whether that's for like running a studio, it could be that right now you're like, my like pipe dream of working in music is to run a creative company or run a cultural network like these guys are this evening. It might be to run a studio or to be an artist. I think whatever those things are, I hope some of these non-negotiables feel like they exist across all strands of my work. For me, specifically with production, because it's involved, you know, there's some tech involved, right? You need to understand what DAW works. You need to understand how to plug things into an interface and make things make sense. And if speakers don't work, you need to know how to fix it. But ultimately, I think the non-negotiable to be a good producer is to lead with creativity, and the tech will follow. I think that's the greatest separation from production and engineering. Engineering doesn't really light me on fire at all. I'm not overly interested. I'm a little bit of a lazy engineer. I'm not a great gearhead either. I will go to people that's their lifeblood and learn from them. For me, I think I'm interested in bringing people together and saying, cool, if it's that sound you want, I know who can do that. And it's not me, it's all of these people, but I've got a good idea of how I can steer this ship. So lead with creativity. And for me as well, you know, the thing that Tom had said about Audrey and I being really passionate about trying to break down these barriers, you know, I won't kind of get into the nitty gritty of these statistics, but there is still a massive gender imbalance in music production. So a lot of our educational workshops are for female identifying producers to say that studios sometimes really quietly, they feel like male dominated spaces, but often if you allow yourself into them and you allow yourself the I suppose the permission, a lot of those barriers we've created for ourselves, not explicitly, but part of it can be undone by saying, I actually deserve to be here and I've got a really good idea. I don't know what that button does. I think if I might move that fader, it may explode, but I have a really good creative idea. And if you're brave with that, then you do deserve to be in a studio and you can make great work in a studio. A non-negotiable is to listen to the people around you, but in order to be a good producer, just listen to music as much as you possibly can. I think the most telling moment in a new collaboration as a producer with an artist is to sit down and say, right, let's make a reference playlist for this single. In fact, I've done that with Patsy that's on the call this evening, which was a really lovely project to work on. There is a difference in asking an artist, what do you want this album to sound like? And what are your favourite songs? And being able to create an artistic vision for a track is very different than just saying things that you like. So as a producer, you kind of need to have a catalogue of stuff of saying, actually, I don't make this type of music, but I've listened to a bunch of things on Six that I think might help here. So having a kind of your own encyclopedia that continues to build and grow, taking an interest in the music that other people love, even if it doesn't push your buttons, it is a skill. I'm not going to go into all of these in like innate detail. I know that time is of the essence this evening, and I'm really looking forward to having a bit more back and forward and obviously to hear from Emma. But on this list, you can read for yourself. I think the main one, I would approach production like playing an instrument. It's so easy, particularly when I'm doing like short intensive courses or, you know, lecturing on a degree program. Students will maybe spend like a couple of weeks on Logic and be like, man, my head's fried. I can't do this. I'm never going to be able to do this. This is for someone else. But as an artist, you do lose a bit of autonomy if you need to stand at the back of a studio and just let somebody push the buttons. So grounding yourself with like fundamental production education is something I'm really passionate about. You do not need to be an expert. You don't need to mix and master your own album. Send it to a professional. But having an understanding of how to push the buttons and make some sound come out, it's a transformative thing for you as an individual. So anybody on the call, even if it's free software, even if it's BandLab or GarageBand, don't let anyone tell you that that isn't good enough. If it's a setup that's going to motivate you to be creative and to just take some creative control, I urge you to do that. It doesn't mean you need to become a producer, but the best artists are the ones that can hold on to that ownership. And so often that's given away in studio environments. And as a producer, I try really hard to make sure it's always in the artist's hands. The last thing I will leave on from this non-negotiables list here, Joe had mentioned a bit of advice he had been given. The best bit of advice I got given was from a TV composer that I went to go and meet. I had no right to be in this guy's office. I don't really know why I was there. But when I was setting up that business, I was like, I need to just go and chat to folk. I don't know how to set up a business. I don't know how to run a studio. Where will I buy my microphones? How do I do my accounts? Who's going to book me to write any music? It was so much unknown. And I just went and had coffee with loads of people. I was probably rattling by the time I was having some of these conversations, but this composer specifically said, just make the work that you want to get paid for. So disciplining ourselves for Audrey and I, we were working other jobs, we were teaching at the time, both of us. So in the evenings, we were like, imagine someone said, you can soundtrack this short series that's a bit like Killing Eve or a bit like I May Destroy You, shows that we really loved. And we wanted to sound a bit like Billie Eilish's first album, or we wanted to sound a bit like Aphex Twin. And we were like, oh my God, how cool would that be if someone told us to do that? But we just made it anyway because it was so much fun to make. I mean, granted, it probably didn't sound great. It probably hasn't aged well, but the point was it made us excited. It meant we were working to a deadline. It was one that we had set, but we were producers. And just like Joe saying in the pub to his pal, like, I'm a conductor, that's kind of our... I suppose that was a turning point for us of saying this is what we do now. It just so happens that we weren't getting paid yet, but you are literally 1 gig away from doing it professionally. But you need to act like you're doing it professionally before someone is willing to give you their cash. I think is a good bit of advice. I'll finish up on the next slide if that's okay, Amy. And I'll forward this stuff on to Patsy. I'm not going to get into any of this stuff, but for me, I think with production, it's very, very easy to become intimidated. As soon as you start, you maybe don't have great sound libraries. You've never used samples before. You don't really know what all the buttons mean. You've not invested in any decent plugins yet. So what you make sounds rubbish. And it's really easy to throw the towel in and be like, I don't know how to do it. For me, I think the best thing you can do is turn to someone sounding excited about what they're making. Turn to people who are talking about production and they are experts at it, or they can recall. So the Song Exploder podcast, which is in the top right, is such a great way of just reminding yourself why you want to do it in the first place. It's just a bunch of artists talking about how they turned one song from a demo from sitting in their bedroom to a fully produced record that we know. And it's to me, I think it's a really good piece of advice if you can listen to those conversations and not be intimidated, be inspired. So don't feel like, man, I'm miles away from this. I'll never be able to do that. Use those opportunities to hear people talk about their thing and feel inspired by it. I'm going to shut up now, if that's okay. The last slide is my email address, so I'm going to forward that through the network anyway, if anyone has further questions. But Tom, I'll pass to you.
Laura, that's been a fascinating little journey that I've been enthralled by. You talking about, your heart and soul really comes through in the way that you talk about what you do, which is always full of, genuine authenticity. And I kind of believe every word you say. Anna and George and Laura and Rose, I think, are with us. So if you've got any questions, then just stick your hand up on the electronic thing and we'll get you to ask that question direct to Lauren. I suppose, Lauren, there's quite a lot of drive involved in what you're talking about, isn't there? I think. Tell us a bit about that, and then we'll come to Rose, who's got a question. So how do you stay driven?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. I think that final point there of listening and wanting to emulate really drives me. So quite often, now that Novasound's been established for quite a long time, we are juggling projects kind of all of the time. but like a new record will come out. And Audrey, that I run the studio with, our business model's changed a little bit. She tours with a band called Franz Ferdinand, so she's touring around the world a lot of the time. So we produce tracks remotely now, and she will make a beat and be like, oh man, I just heard this thing on, you know, Lauren Laverne, or I just heard this track and I just wanted to make something like it or that felt like it. And I think being quick and immediate, that's what I love about production, and not feeling like, I think it not being perfect is what drives me, and saying, cool, she sent me a beat from like America last night, I just want to like layer up loads of vocals on it or like put a weird sample on it. I think that immediacy drives me. Completing an idea drives me as well. So even if it's like, cool, we don't necessarily need to put that out, or it might not be for this project, but let's get it into a shape that we can look back and learn something from it. So for me, kind of what drives me is when we get to the end of a year and we look at sort of our 2025 folder and say, right, cool, let's jump back into that. What did we put in the bin from that project? That's actually quite a cool beat. Maybe we could use that to, you know, just try and kickstart something new. So for me, I think the thing that keeps me driven, Tom, is hearing something as a producer and saying, that's really interesting to me. I want to reverse engineer it, or I want to make something that is something similar.
Okay, right. Just coughing. Right, Rose, would you like to come off mute, Rose? Or we'll take you off mute and you can ask your question. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Tell us who you are, Rose, and where you are, and maybe what stage you're at.
I'm currently in Workington, and I'm currently writing a musical. So
Okay.
I want to know, how do you keep the motivation to continue when things start to get bad?
It's a great question, Rose, and congratulations on writing your musical. I imagine you'll have that feeling at multiple points of the project. For me, I think feedback is really important. So particularly as a producer, if you're creating something electronically or digitally, Joe talked about the sort of collaborative ethos of music and always being in a room with lots of people that you can bounce off of. For production and seemingly for composition for yourself as well, it can be quite isolating at times. I'm lucky that I'm part of a partnership, so being in a constant feedback loop, even though it's scary, I think can really help to drive you. Something that I would suggest you do, Rose, is instead of just sending an idea off and saying, what do you think? That sort of leaves you open for someone to feedback on anything at all. And a really good skill is to actually ask for specific feedback. So it could be like, I have this, you know, second demo of the third song in the musical for Act One. What do you think of the lyrics, like in this thing? Like, are you following the story? Am I missing anything? Do you know the hook enough? Be specific about the feedback you want, and then take some time, utilize the feedback. Don't make any rash decisions. And I would say as well, when things are starting to get tough, try and pace your creative process a little bit. So if you are mainly working in the evenings, and it's not really vibing, maybe try and switch that up a little bit if you have the capacity to do that. For me, I think it's about trying to get smart with, this routine isn't really helping. Maybe we need to start early and just do like a couple of hours and put that idea to one side, and then go away and go to a meeting or mix something or go and teach a class and revisit it. So make sure you give yourself a bit of grace in the process, I would say, Rose. Give yourself a bit of time, but also don't feel alone. Send that work out for advice, and don't feel bad about being specific of what the thing you might want feedback on is.
Okay. Rose, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good advice. Thank you for your question, Rose. Patsy, you obviously know Lauren probably quite well. Is there anything that you'd like to ask her?
Yeah, I wondered at what point you realised you wanted to do music, whether you were a musician at school and when you were younger.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Because unlike Joe, I totally didn't know that at all, and I think I really got in my head at school. So I have always loved music. I learned to play piano and sing, but not to I wasn't graded really high, and I didn't stick at it enough, and I wasn't disciplined enough. In 6th year at school, I was an academic student and got straight A's and thought that meant I shouldn't be doing something creative by my own volition, nobody else's. And I studied law for a year, and I was in like this massive lecture theatre with hundreds of people, and I was just hating it. It was just about the environment. And I knew pretty quickly that I think that's why I kind of mentioned that the space that you're in, it tells you so much. So for me, Patsy, I think it was about giving myself permission to say, you know what you love doing, you're prepared to work really hard at this. This isn't the place to do it. No one's making you do something quote unquote academic. And actually, what I've found now in my work is that creative practice and academia actually can hold hands and marry up really well. And it feels like I'm being able to do both of those things in the end anyway. But for anyone on the call sort of looking on the precipice of further education, saying, I should probably do something that feels safer or that feels more academically robust, I would challenge that and say you can absolutely find that in the creative arts as well, and follow the direction that you're willing to work the hardest in.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you again.
And you, as always, and you.
Sorry to break in on the love in here, but it's lovely. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Lauren, for all that information. Lots of stuff to think about there. And as I said, I think the other thing that comes through to me from you is you really are a listener. You know, the way you picked up on what Joe and I had been speaking about in the first session, you clearly are used to listening to people as well as to music. And there's no greater compliment you can pay someone than to listen to them and to give them that sense of feeling of being listened to, because we all spend our lives not really listening to people a lot of the time. So you're a great listener, clearly, Lauren. So thank you for sharing that skill with us this evening as well.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your career so far. And I can't wait to find out what you do next. It sounds fascinating, and I hope you stay in contact through Patsy, perhaps, with the network as we go forwards, because we've got lots of stuff we're doing with young people over the next couple of years in this project called See It to Be It, and we need people like you to be role models and to show that things are possible. Great. Speaking of which, so thank you very much, Lauren. Speaking of which, we have our third and final role model this evening. It's Emma Salmon, who is sitting there patiently in Whitehaven. Emma is a local community musician working across West Cumbria. Emma works as a professional musician, facilitator and educator. She's also the creative producer for local music charity Soundwave. As a musician, Emma has had her original music played on Radio 1 and has performed at Maida Vale Studios. I've been there as well, with her band Flint. I hope I've said that correctly. What a thing to be able to say, Emma. And Emma is passionate about making music with her community, and I know is embedded in the local arts scene. So Emma, thank you ever so much for joining us again this evening and waiting patiently for us. Tell us a bit about your journey into what you have become, Emma, and then I think we're going to see a little bit of you in action as well. But first of all, just introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about how you've got to where you've got to.
Hi, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Lauren. Oh my gosh, I learned so much from all of that, Lauren. That was amazing. Thank you. I'm going to be checking out your Novasound stuff after this call. So hi everyone, my name's Emma. I live and work in Cumbria. I guess I've always liked music since I was young. I was a very shy child, and my mum was very encouraging of me. I really liked to sing, but I was a bit too shy, and I used to like sing behind the door at home and stuff. But I used to love singing, and I was always the classic wallflower at school, where when people were like, Emma knows the answer, but she doesn't put her hand up. If she only put her hand up, I was that child at school that just faded into the background. I guess my mum's like a big champion for me. So when I was about 15, 16, I did like a lot of Amdram stuff. I was in like local theatre shows. And I kind of got into this space where I was like, ooh, writing original music. I like watched Camp Rock and High School Musical, wanted to be with the Jonas Brothers. They were writing songs at Camp Rock, got into that kind of headspace of, ooh, original music. And I was doing that kind of on my own when I was about 13, 14. And my mum worked for a local credit union in Whitehaven, and she was at like a network meeting, and there was somebody there at that network meeting from a charity called Soundwave. And she came home and she said to me, you need to go to this place, to which I just recoiled in fear. and said, "Oh my God, you want me to go into a big building with people I don't know and make music with people that I've never met before and show my own music, my own original music to people? You must be crazy." But after some conversations, shall we say, she eventually got me to get in the car, and she took me down to the Civic Hall at the time in Whitehaven where the session was running. And I was about 14, 15 at the time, and oh gosh, I just wonder what my life would have been like if I didn't do that. So now the charity I work for is Soundwave now, so I now work at Soundwave. So that was my, and it's so funny talking about it, that it was actually my mum kind of pushing me. And it's not even, she wasn't like a dance mum, like making me perform, but I think she just knew that would help me in lots of ways, and it really did. And I started my first band there, recorded my first EP with my band there. The staff was so encouraging and warm, and it enabled me to create my own community in music in a time where I didn't really have one outside of that. I was very, very just isolated and alone, and in an area where I'm from in Whitehaven, I don't know if everybody knows this, there's a big nuclear power plant called Sellafield, and a lot of my friends still to this day, they all work there, and I am very much in the minority of people around me that work in the arts in some form. So I went away and studied music at Leeds Conservatoire.
Just frozen for us.
Oh, sorry. Am I back?
You're back. I think you're back.
Oh, sorry about that.
It may have been me. Carry on, Emma.
I'm just going through. Okay.
Oh, cool. I went away to study music. I went to study pop vocals at Leeds Conservatoire. I didn't really like it. I wasn't really quite, confident enough to focus on that. So then moved into the pop songwriting. And luckily, that's where I got the chance to take part in some community music modules. And that kind of, it's funny how these things just change your trajectory a little bit, which is really interesting.
Well, shall we see a little bit of you in action, Emma?
Yeah, of course.
And then we can perhaps reflect a little bit more. So do you need to introduce this? I think Emma's going to play something.
I just put this together yesterday. I don't actually have a show reel, but this is just a mixture of the things I do. So, yeah.
Let's have a look.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I'm the creative producer for Soundwave. We have been running the Root stage this weekend alongside Generator, All My Days, Kendall Calling, and BBC Introducing. And right now, today, we're on day 2, and the stage is going so much better than we ever could have imagined. And we've had so many excited bands and up-and-coming musicians that have been so thrilled and happy to be a part of this experience. And for our team, our staff, the trainees that are here learning how to run live events, how to tech sound, how to do lights. Our young people that have never performed before travelled through to do the gig here, and they were absolutely beaming about it. I've never seen them be so chuffed and overwhelmed with it before.
And I could spend my days flying up in space, pulling clouds and all the stars over your face. But that's a waste of time when I'm not on your mind. Alone I go into the unknown, and I won't keep running, 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 running.
I'm gonna see out with this. So you told me to come over. This conversation is already over.
She sees her baby girl, I know she's gonna scream, God, what have you done? You're a pink pony girl, and you dance at the club, oh mama.
I find myself so lonely without you. I don't know if it's you or love I want it,
But every time I think about it, I am unwritten, can't read my mind, I'm undefined. Next it goes. I'm just beginning. Try that.
Very well done to everybody that has come in and got their drum quietly and sat down on it.
The summer season to come.
Oh, that's cool.
Dreaming of a summer season to come. Yeah.
I like that.
Dreaming of a summer season.
Lady, running down to the riptide, taking away to the dark side. I wanna be your left-hand man.
That's fantastic, Emma. What a fantastic range of things that you're involved in. How does that make you feel watching that back?
It's really nice watching it back. Yeah, I feel very, very lucky to work with lots of people, lots of ages as well, lots of little people.
Yeah. I think I was that Kendall Calling clip from last year.
Yeah,
I was, because I went to Kendall Calling last year and really enjoyed coming to was it the Roots tent, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the charity I work for, Soundwave, we ran the Roots stage, which was all about championing Cumbrian and well, West and North East acts. Yeah,
it was one of my favourite bits of the whole festival was what I experienced and watched and sort of felt watching the stuff that you did at your tent. I suppose the question that I've got for you is, singing in front of a lot of people with a microphone, and that's a brave thing to do at any age, whether you're a man, a woman, a young man, a young woman. That's a big thing to do, and that's quite a different skill set to working with that little boy and helping him to sing with your guitar, playing the guitar. So that's quite a range of skills you've got there. Is there a bit that you prefer doing than others, or do you quite like that sort of portfolio career that you've got?
I think that's probably why it works for me, is that I get to do a mixture of everything. Because performing is just such a joy. And for those people on this call who I know are performers, you'll all understand being on stage and singing live, and especially singing your own music, is just something that is just so, what a wonderful thing to be able to do. But having those opportunities where you're with, like, that was Ashton who I was singing with there, and seeing that little spark in someone and being able to encourage that and bring that out of somebody, is just, I see it is one of the privileges of my job, being that person that can, like, see that in somebody and just give them a little bit of encouragement. And I really, really do love working with that age group. I love working with primary school age children. It's brilliant. But I work with a lot of teenagers. I work with a lot of, well, all ages of people. The choir at the end, Discord, they've been together since 2018. That was the first time I'd ever run a choir. So yeah, I like every single bit of it, because it kind of touches different parts of things that I like to do.
Okay, but it sounds to me like you're not the sort of person that wants to find a comfort zone. You want to keep stretching yourself and trying new things and trying new situations and seizing perhaps opportunities when they come your way, even though you might feel inside you're not quite ready. You're still going to go for it. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. I don't think I'd say that about myself, I guess, but yeah, hearing that, I guess it does. Yeah, I think in this industry, working in music, and as some people have touched on before, you've kind of got to, like, figure out the different areas and move with the tide, I guess, and let yourself be molded into the practitioner that you end up being, I guess. Because I didn't think that I would ever run a choir, but really, when I started working in community music, I like working with young musicians, but the joy of being in a choir brings me, and being able to hear those harmonies come back at you and see the smiles on people's faces, and how happy it makes them to come and sing for an hour and a half every week, and that you're the one that facilitates that. I never thought I would have done that, even like 3 years ago. I didn't think I'd even be doing it this long, but I love it. So there's real lots of different areas that I kind of cross in my roles, for sure.
Yeah. If anyone's got any questions from who's on this call, then just stick your hand up electronically and I'll be able to see you, and I'll be able to take you off mute and ask Emma a question. But that question that Rose asked earlier to Lauren, Emma, about what do you do, she was writing a musical, what do you do when kind of times get tough and you get stuck and you don't know quite what to do next? What would your answer to that question have been?
I think sometimes you need space from things. I noticed that myself. I think just taking a bit of time, having time out, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I will drill it sometimes and think it needs to be done, it needs to be finished, though I'm not ready, it's not done. And sometimes you just need to pause it, come back. Time is always going to be there. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be there to come back to. Give yourself that space. Go and watch something on Netflix. Go and see a friend. do something else.
But don't give up.
It's not the end of the world if you don't get to do it today. It'll be there for you to come back to. And also having a community of people that you might trust, and like Lauren said before, asking for feedback, having those people that you can rely on, that you know are going to give you a bit of advice back. Because that's for me as a musician. I don't really like working in isolation, and I've found people I love to work with and that are true partners for me in my musical life. And that also goes for the wider arts and culture community in this area in Cumbria. You know, I've got organisations and people that I know I can call on and ask for advice, and other practitioners that do what I do. So having those people that you can talk to. And if you don't have those people, see if you can engage in places where those people might be, which might be scary at first, but it's worth it.
Okay. Rose has got her hand up again. So Rose, off you go. We'll just take you off mute. There we go.
So you said earlier that you were quite shy. How did you build your confidence up?
Ooh.
It's a great question, Rose.
Interesting. Yeah. There's always that introvert extrovert question, isn't there? I guess by taking action on things, how I show myself I can do things, but it's sometimes the scariest bit. But I've learned that if I don't take action and I don't do the scary thing, that I probably won't grow much. I probably won't get to do the thing I really want to do. So I guess in a weird way, I know I've got to eat the frog. I know I've got to do the hard thing. And inaction is the worst thing. Sometimes you just need to take one step, and that might be just following someone on Instagram that's musical. That might be the first step. But I think the more I just engaged with things and I found that community of people, like when I went through the doors at Soundwave, my heart was racing. I was terrified. I remember it so well. You know, I don't think I even talked to anybody the first night I went, but I went back because the feeling was good and I like knew the space. I went back, and eventually start to meet people. But I am confident in the things I have spent time on. So when I get up on stage and I perform, it's me as the performer. It's Emma that's performing. I don't, run around and shake my hair around in everyday life. That would be a bit odd. But yeah, I guess I've learned that I'm still quite a shy person when I meet people now, but I know that you've got to take action is something that I've learned, and that sometimes is the hardest thing. But it only has to be a small step, and those tiny little steps come together, and before you know it, you're doing something you never thought you would do. So yeah, it's sometimes some hard advice to hear that, but it really does. It changed what I was going to do. So yeah.
Does that make sense to you, Rose? What Emma's just said there? She's just going to come off mute again. Let's just get Rose off mute. Let's see if I can unmute you, Rose. There we go. Yeah. Does that make sense, what Emma just said?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Yeah, great. All right. Patsy, is there anything you'd like to say to Emma or ask Emma?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting to meet you because I'm a fellow songwriter in Cumbria. But I just wondered if you had goals to this day and what kind of like motivates you day by day.
Oh, what motivates me day by day? I guess in the community music sense, I have so many lovely people that I've worked with over the years, and I feel, seeing their little faces in my, rear view when I look back and I think of all those children that I've worked with that have kind of just shown an interest in music and maybe have gone on to like not be mean to somebody that said they like Billie Eilish, or not be mean to somebody that said, just being like music is cool, like do what you want, doesn't matter. That keeps me motivated, knowing that I might play a small part in somebody's attitude towards music, or maybe them thinking that it could be something that they go on to do creatively. And I guess just in my own musical practice as a songwriter, I guess knowing that I have got something to say and that people want to hear it, I guess. And that takes a bit of time to kind of believe that. But I've got lots of lovely people that I write music with. But yeah, it can be hard at times to stay motivated. But I do try my best to find ways to do that. But yeah, thanks, Patsy. That got me thinking. That one. I hope
Great,
that
thank you. Sorry, it was a bit of a tricky one.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
Patsy, how do you keep your songwriting going?
I say it comes in waves. It naturally comes when I have like a certain emotion or say something's happened in my life. It doesn't have to be drastic, but I think it comes naturally. Like, I just have an overwhelming urge to write a song. I don't think it's something that I constantly think about, and I try not to push it.
Yeah, let it come naturally. Okay. And Lauren, is there anything that you'd like to add to what you heard from Emma there, about what she's been talking about?
Yeah, I think it's really great to hear a little bit about the community arts part of your practice, Emma. I think it's really interesting. It's less of a question and more of a comment, that it really feels like one feeds the other. Like the way you were talking about, you know, I imagine there's like peaks where the Soundwave stuff totally takes over. Like, for example, when you're running that stage, that must just be a massive, massive undertaking. But, you know, for anyone on the call, that idea of a portfolio career or having a patchwork of things that you feel really driven by, once that project is over, you then feel really creatively replenished to then pour that back into your own writing or your own gigging or your own touring, whatever that might be. So I think for anybody on the call that maybe over the next couple of years, as you start to look at further education and think about what is this portfolio career, I think probably, at least with both of us, I suppose with Joe's experience, it's the same job in lots of places. But even at that, I think all of us sort of speak to that idea of sustaining, you know, creative relationships with lots of people and lots of things at once. And one really does feed the other. Probably the thing that unifies everybody on the call is wanting a sense of like not doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that really feeds creative practice. So I thought that was really interesting to hear, Emma, that I bet that the writing part of your practice changes after like a big Soundwave project has just finished, because you're like, right, let me pour that right back into my own music. I thought that was great.
Thank you, Lauren. Emma, what would you tell the 15-year-old Emma? What advice would you give her?
Just do it. Whatever it is you want to do, just try.
But you had the support of your mum by the sound of things, who sort of pushed you metaphorically.
Oh yes, big champion. Yeah, listen to your mum occasionally, and don't compare yourself. I know that, yeah, that's something a lot of people say. And what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? Like really ask yourself that. If I'm really scared to do this tiny thing, what's the worst that will happen if it doesn't go well? Like really just. Yeah,
I think that's a brilliant question to ask oneself, when one's trying to do something different or new or brave. What's the worst that could happen if it all doesn't go quite the way you want it to? Good point to end on there, Emma. Thank you so much for that, and it's great to see you in action on that little show reel as well. And I know all the music and all the work that Soundwave does, which I'm quite aware of, is amazing what you do in West Cumbria, have you just got some new offices, is that right? You've got some smart new offices?
Yeah, we're based in Whitehaven Town Centre, but I will say, just a little plug, if any of the attendees are from West Cumbria, and you want to get involved in music sessions, we run sessions across Whitehaven, Workington, and Cockermouth. They're all free. You can come and meet other musicians. It's like the session I first went to when I was like 14. Mm-hmm. Just follow us online, Facebook, Soundwave Cumbria. You can see when all our sessions are on. If you're into music, do it. Come along.
That's a great invitation. Right. So, Patsy, anything you'd like to say as we conclude this session, because it's coming up to 7:30?
I'd just like to say a massive thank you. Thank you to the young people who've joined, and thank you to the speakers, Lauren, Emma and Joe. Thank you. It's been really interesting. Even for me, it's been really interesting. Thank you.
Even for Patsy. And I'd like to say the Cumbria Arts and Culture Network, of which I am part of, we are launching this piece of work over the next 2.5 years called See It to Be It. And we're calling it that because we think that in Cumbria, we need to work harder at getting role models and examples of people who are doing creative careers, making creative things happen, in a way that it's quite difficult. As I think Emma was saying, you know, when she was growing up in Whitehaven, there was Sellafield just down the road and all of her friends were ending up there. Well, there's life beyond Sellafield in Cumbria. There definitely is. And we want to try and support people to try and explore what that life beyond Sellafield could look like and what it could be like, and maybe you might even be able to earn a living out of doing it. So look out for See It to Be It. And again, if you're not following Cumbria Arts and Culture Network, one of the big challenges we face is connecting with young people, finding young people, and then engaging with them in the work we're doing. So stay in contact with us, please. Again, we're on all the socials. We've got a website. All the contacts are there. And let's see if we can do some great stuff together. I'd like to say thank you very much to Lauren and to Joe, who had to go and do some conducting, and to Emma, and to Amy, who's pressed the buttons in the background, and also to the lovely Patsy. Sorry, Patsy, I forgot your name for a second. Who has pulled all this together and has made it happen. And, you know, Young Sounds is a great piece of work that will continue, I'm sure, to try and support young people. There is support out there. You've got to look for it a little bit yourself, but it's there. And we want to help young people in Cumbria develop careers in music, but also in all the other cultural sectors as well. So good luck, everybody. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I hope it's been of interest. We've recorded this, so there'll be a recording of it that will appear probably on the Young Sounds and also the CACN websites in due course and on social media. It's 7:30. Thank you, everybody. Lovely to see you all. Enjoy the rest of your time.